Greetings, everyone. I just wanted to stop and say hello. It's been a really intense week for me. And like the title says, I had a meltdown, but I'm okay. Okay, so let's see. Last week I had 4 doctor appointments, if not 5. This week I have a total of 3. But yesterday I had to go to Minneapolis, so my nice friend took me to the local VA, and then an amazing DAV driver drove me to Minneapolis. I saw my plastic surgeon, whom is very, very good at what he does, by the way. Very personable, very intelligent, and he's so booked that he is right now booked until like 6 months out. And I would like for them at the VA to get another plastic surgeon that does the same kind of surgery, because it's a microsurgery. It requires, basic surgical training, but then the surgeons have to get additional specialized training. And from what I understand, there's not as many surgeons that do this surgery. It's called deep flap surgery. It's something like deep something. I don't remember what the deep stands for, but it's deep abdominal. It goes into your abdomen, but it's superficial. So one of my nurses from the VA, whom basically has been one of the strongest advocates for me and liaison, was supposed to meet me, but she was not there. So that happens. Something came up for her. So I met with the surgeon, I don't know, maybe like a 1-hour consultation or half hour, whatever. And he went over everything. He wanted to make sure I was a candidate for it, which I am. It's a positive. And I have a tentative date set, which I won't say which date, but it's in January. So you guys know how my brain works. It's like, I was going to say it's like a computer, but I mean, it really isn't. I'm like collecting data, all over the place. And how do I explain this? So again, my VA nurse had been advocating and helping me since all this began in August of 2025. And I did as much research as I could on the breast reconstruction, as opposed to, I didn't do a lot of research on the chemotherapy or radiation. And I will eventually down the road, but the problem with these things is you can research and then terrify yourself and think about everything that could go wrong and all these things. And I would prefer not to put these things in my mind. But when it came to breast reconstruction, to me that was very important to understand how it all works. I think the surgery that I'm getting, I believe they call it autologous. I may be saying it wrong, but there's different types of flap surgeries, which it's very similar to how they would do like an organ donation or a skin transplant for a burn victim, except that they're taking tissue from yourself, moving it to another area of your body, and that area has to be viable to take the flap, which is a flap of your skin, and they have to make sure that the blood vessels, I don't know how to explain it, but that you get enough blood circulation there to keep the flap alive. Now, when it comes to maybe and I'm not an expert, you guys know that, but if it would come to maybe a burn victim or something way more serious like a heart transplant from another person, a cadaver body, I know people that get organ transplants. I remember seeing a veteran many years ago when I was in the emergency room for something else. He had a kidney transplant, and anyways, long story short, the doctors had to make sure he had this very, very expensive medication. You guys know what's up. For his kidney transplant in order to ensure that his body would accept that kidney. So when it comes to these kind of surgeries, there's a few similarities. So in order for that flap that they put over your chest wall to create a new breast, they have to make sure that you've got a lot of healthy blood flow. And I'm going to research more, but I've researched a lot into it, and I'm convinced I want this surgery. And this doctor is very good in what he does. But you know, my little computer brain was collecting all the information he was giving me, and I kind of went down, not a rabbit hole, but how do you say that? I don't know how to say it. Catastrophizing. You guys know how to say it. I don't know how to say that word. But when he did the exam was short, and he made sure that my abdomen would be a possibility for this surgery. Everything was good, so I was very pleased about that. There's another test that I need to get because I had another abdominal surgery about 6 or 7 years ago, and he has to make sure that the blood flow there's healthy before they would take the flap and transplant it to the chest wall area. So how this particular doctor, and he does a lot of these surgeries, all veterans, how they usually do it in Minneapolis VA in his clinic is there's a few different ways to go about it. It depends on the woman. It depends on the kind of surgery she wants. But I'm thinking more about the deep flap surgery. In some instances, they can do the mastectomy, and then immediately after the mastectomy is done, because they have to make sure whatever cancer is taken out, whatever masses there are, or how do you say it? Axillary, which is the underarm area where the lymph nodes are, which I did have some cancer activity there. So that's the primary concern, obviously. And then there's one surgeon there that would do the mastectomy at that VA, and then the plastic surgeon, my surgeon, comes in with this other, for the other patient, and immediately does a deep flap. That's the perfect world. If I would have known about all this, I would have gone to the perfect world, but I didn't. Because where my cancer was, they had to act fast. It's like not a joke. So trying to set this up so you guys understand why I got so upset. So then, and this is the little research that I've done about this. So, how I had mine was just the surgeon did the mastectomy. And then because how fast acting all these clinics were going, and the plastic surgeon in my location did not do the kind of surgery that I wanted to have done. And honestly, I wasn't impressed with her at all, which I went against the grain. Everyone was just praising her. I didn't like her. I didn't like how she was acting toward me, and she sort of was acting like I was inconveniencing her, and I just didn't like her. So I'm a pretty good judge of character, but I feel like she also really dropped the ball on me as well. And then the authorization number that was supposed to cover the plastic surgeon got lost or something. I don't know. So that was kind of a mess. And then a whole army of medical professionals, nurses and doctors and whomever else worked to get a new authorization number for me to see that particular surgeon. And I get in there and I didn't care for her much. So now I've told you how my plastic surgeon in Minneapolis does the deep flap, and how in the perfect world, the woman has the mastectomy. That surgeon does that part. And then the plastic surgeon comes in immediately and does the deep flap. That's like the ideal world. Some women don't want to have the deep flap, so they will get an implant. Anyways, I'm not completely knowledgeable on all of this, but so in order for, if a woman decides, especially the younger ones want this a lot, if a woman decides that she wants one implant or 2 implants, depending on the whole situation, the mastectomy will be done, and the doctor will put what is called expanders in her, like the chest wall area. And that is meant to stretch the skin, to create a larger tissue area. So the doctors can either, number one, put implant or implants into the woman, or, and I don't know exactly how this works, in some cases they do the expander. I could be wrong on this, but in some cases they put in the expander and also the deep flap at the same time. I could be screwed up on this. I could be. Because I don't know that they do that so often, because I was reading somewhere that probably wouldn't be a good idea, because come to think of it, you guys, I don't think that's done as much, because of the fact that if they put these tissue expanders into the woman at the same time that they put the deep flap in, the deep flap is not going to heal as well, so it's probably frowned upon. Venture to say they probably don't do that much. But in most cases, the reason for putting expander into the chest wall, especially if you were more busty like me, is the idea that you're stretching the skin a little bit so that there's more room to either put in so if the expander is put in, there's going to be more tissue space to put in an implant. Or if later on, after the expander is taken out and they put the deep flap in, there's more tissue to work with. This is what I understand. I did some research about 5 minutes yesterday, and that was what this website had stated. So the first plastic surgeon, as far as I'm concerned, really dropped the ball on me, because that is something that she does every single day of her life. She's trained for it. Granted, she didn't do the surgery that I wanted, And I knew that I wasn't going to have her as my surgeon. But she could have very well said to me, make sure you get an expander. That's all she would have had to say, because I'm the patient and she's the surgeon that does this every single day of her life. And she's been doing it for a while. She didn't even do that. I had talked extensively with my VA nurse about various things, including the expander. And I didn't know much about the expander. I had the impression that the expander was mostly used for women that got implants. So anyways, so that should make you guys understand why I got to where I was yesterday when I came home. So as I'm talking to the surgeon, he's getting information from me, health history, etc. I'm getting the impression from him that he's a little PO'd. Because you guys know, I call myself Eyes to See for a reason. I've got very super strong intuition. And he was like, usually how we do it here in our clinic is the woman gets the mastectomy and then expanders immediately. Except in the case that maybe they do the mastectomy to the deep flap. And every person's different. Everybody's breast tissue is different. The mastectomy takes the majority of your breast tissue away. So I could tell he wasn't happy that I didn't have expanders. So now I'm picking up on his energy, and I'm like, my mind's going to like disaster land. But yet I'm smart enough to understand that, because he's explaining to me exactly how he's going to do the surgery. So I'm smart enough to understand that when he takes the abdominal flap and puts it onto my chest wall, he's explaining in detail how he does it. And they got to make sure that the blood flow is good and all that. That all that's happening right now, because it's just basic logic. You're putting a piece of skin on top of a flat as a pancake chest wall. So I'm getting really upset in the back of my mind. And I knew that things were screwed up. And then, so anyways, I'm going to this land. I'm like very upset. I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to be fairly flat. And I'm really super upset because I've always been fairly voluptuous. I'm not as voluptuous as some women are, but I was, I got something there, So I had to internally hold this all in while I'm getting a ride back to my hometown. And then I get home and then I call my niece and my friend and I'm bawling my head off explaining all this. And then I had contacted my other friend who's a cancer survivor, and she was busy with work, so she couldn't. Initially she wanted to call me when I was at the hospital, and I said, I can't talk here. And then later on I couldn't talk to her because she was busy with her work, which is understandable. So I'm thinking it's a done deal. Oh, there was one part I forgot to explain to you guys. So the reason the whole expander part came up on my radar was that, and I knew about it before, but when I had gone to see my radiation doctor, I could tell in her eyes, because I read people, like in a good way, that she was upset I didn't have expanders in. Or maybe I read into it, but I don't think I did. So that's where the whole little thought got planted into my head. So she's telling me about how my skin will change with radiation. That was like probably my first little kind of meltdown inside. And I think she could detect how I was feeling, because she said it doesn't mean that you can't have reconstruction. That was the first time I started to flip the F out inside, because I'm thinking, I know you guys did M and F and do this to me And now I won't be able to have some type of decent reconstruction because you guys did not give me the expander. So already this seed had been planted in my head, thinking that my skin won't be able to have a reconstructed breast that I was envisioning. I mean, I know that it's not going to be like my own. Nothing's ever going to be the same. But you guys would be amazed at the kind of work that surgeons can do now. And it helps women a whole lot. So in my head, I'm thinking, I know these MNFers did not do this to me. Like, I'm like, just want to freaking go off. Because when the radiation doctor was talking to me, I said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, can I get the expander put in now? And she said, no, because we have to do this radiation, which is totally understandable. They've got to get it. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, if my skin is going to change that much from radiation, am I effed? I'm like flipping out inside. And she was saying, well, you can still have reconstruction. But now in the back of my mind, I got all these crazy thoughts in my head. And that had been, I don't want to cry, you guys, but that was what was giving me hope. You know what I mean? Like, obviously preserving my life is number one, but that was extremely important to me. And I'm thinking in my head that they destroyed my possibility. That's what I'm thinking. And then when I go to see the plastic surgeon at the VA, it seemed to me like he's reaffirming this. But in the end, you guys, it was all my imagination. Okay, just to give you like a spoiler alert. So then I had to get up at 4 a.m. yesterday. Then my wonderful friend dropped me off at the VA. Then the amazing driver drives me to Minneapolis. I'm in a really good mood. And then I see the doctor. The nurse wasn't there, but that's okay because, stuff happens. And I had a pretty pleasant time, but then when I saw the surgeon, and then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I'm thinking this is it. Like, this is a bad situation. That's what I'm thinking. And then when I went home, as I said, like, I talked to my niece and my friend, and I was bawling my head off. I was just all upset. And obviously I slept pretty well. I was just exhausted mentally. And then I had to get an echocardiogram this morning. So I had to get up early again, shower and all that good stuff. And I was just rushing around. Forgot the water on my faucet. I was going to put some filtered water into my water bottle to drink when I went to the hospital. And because the ride guy got there like super on time, I totally forgot about my water. And then my landlord had to go into my apartment and turn the water off. Thank God nothing happened. But so then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, once I talk to my VA nurse, she's going to give me like more of a rundown and an explanation about all this. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, maybe I overreacted and it's not as bad of a situation that I was making it. And I was right about that. And we had a half an hour conversation about how you've got the section of the cancer clinic that's all they focus on is let's get rid of this cancer. That's their top priority, understandably. And then you've got the surgery aspect, which, and honestly, in retrospect, I still have true admiration for my surgeon. It was just me, like my mind was just going crazy because I was like thinking it was her fault and everything that I didn't get the expander because I had asked her like 4 or 5 times about it. And then, so you've got the cancer clinic, you've got the surgery clinic, and then you've got radiation. And radiation's primary focus is let's get rid of the cancer. So my nurse, she's been doing this kind of work for like 13 years. She's wonderful. Like, I'm here to tell you. And I have had amazing care. And that was something that had bothered me too. I'm like, I can't believe how revered I was of all these people. And I was thinking that they really, really messed me up. Because I thought, there's no possibility of me getting an expander now. That was what I had put in my head. And then my nurse was explaining to me how each clinic usually works and how a lot of times they're not really on the same sheet of music, and that getting rid of the cancer is the primary focus, which it should be. But anyway, she just explained it like in great detail, like why things kind of happen the way they did and how people may frame things. And to make a long story short, she explained to me that it's not too late to get an expander. I can, if I want to later, get an expander or expanders if I decide to get an implant on the other side, if that's something I decide on, that it's not too late to do that. So I was so relieved about that. So relieved. And I was just so upset with my surgeon yesterday, and I was so upset with so many people, and I thought, like, how could they let this happen? You know, I was like, I thought this is a disaster, you know. I was just thinking all kinds of things. So, you know, I hesitated. I'm like, should I share this online? And I'm like, I'm going to. And even my niece was saying, like, because I was really crying, like, I was like crazy crying yesterday. And she's like, well, maybe when you get through this, you could help to make sure other women don't go through this. I liked how she was thinking, but when you're going through that, like, you can't think about other things like that. But there's still so many things they can do, and I can still be curvaceous. And I think also, too, what had set me off was the surgeon was talking about doing a breast, what do you call it, a reduction? And that, like, set me off in my mind, too. Because I'm like, I'm not going to take what God gave me and freaking make it smaller. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like all these things were going off in my head. And I realized that because I'm ready. I don't care if they have to do 12 surgeries on me. I'll do it. Because I just want to feel as good about myself as I can, you know, and live. Because living's important. But I won't have anyone, no matter whom I'm talking to, whether a surgeon, a doctor, a nurse, whomever, minimize the fact that my entire breast was taken. Like, you are not going to take my grieving away from me. And it's not that I don't appreciate what's being done, but nobody's going to do that to me or for me or whatever, however you want to look at it. So, yeah, again, I was like thinking, should I share this? And I'm like, I'm going to share this because maybe another woman who's going through breast cancer treatment might listen to this and be like, damn, I better make sure, you know. But in the end, it wasn't a disaster like I thought. Like, my skin will be different after radiation. And obviously getting the cancer gone is the number one goal. But again, I want to feel more womanly again. And even though I was getting all kinds of looks from the men at the hospital, I still don't feel right. Like, I can't. And anyone who's been through this would understand how that feels. And not to get into all the different opinions of breast cancer survivors, but I simply do not understand that whole flat movement. And maybe there's more to it, and no shade to any of them. No shade. But that's not my path, and it never will be. And I don't want to go in too deep on that one, but yeah, I just wanted to share with you guys. I'm okay. Next week I only have 2 appointments, and they're both local, so that's nice. That'll kind of be a little weight off my shoulders. And then I think the following week I only have 1, because physical therapy is every week, and I'm doing really well in that. And I got to lose some weight, which I wasn't real shocked. Because, I mean, what do you guys think you're going to do when you're going through cancer treatment? You got all this stuff going on. For me, and I mean, I couldn't drink, and I'm absolutely not a huge drinker at all. I barely drink. But I just like, I like the possibility of once in a while having a little drink if I want to. Because a lot of people talk about, oh, you can't drink anymore if you got breast cancer and a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, you're just taking everything away. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm doing okay now. I got physical therapy tomorrow, and I plan on relaxing as much as I can this weekend. And I'm going to switch. I mean, I know how to eat healthy. Like, that's not something I don't know about. But it's like going through these stressors. It's like you just, for me, I want to eat stuff that's not good. And it's like, it's comfort food, you know. But today I think I'm going to order a Subway, not Subway, but Jimmy John's, you know, lean sandwich. I know bread, I probably should cut it out all the way, but I mean, come on. So, and my breast reconstruction surgery is set for January. So, yeah, one step at a time. I'm going to be looking at survivorship. And my friend actually had told me that one of the most amazing or profound things she'd heard from someone regarding breast cancer is she said that the minute that you are diagnosed, you're a survivor. That gives me goosebumps. So, have an amazing day, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Peace.